Hi everybody, it's Sid from Cool Movie Gram, your source for everything about cool film. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, check out my videos, like my content, comment and all the usual stuff. And for those of you already doing that, thank you very much and welcome back to the channel. And yes, we are pretty much coming towards the end of the Fu-Bruary series, which is the top 50 Kung Fu movies. This is video 9. Now we are covering the movies 10 till 6, so we are in the top 10 territory. And films, of course, all of these films that I've actually chosen in this series so far, they're all very dear to me and I absolutely love them. And of course now we're just going to discuss my the bottom half of the top 10 movies. So it's going to be 10 movies 10 to 6. So yeah, well, without further ado, let's just dive into this. Number 10 is Drunken Master, 1978 film directed by Yuen Woo-ping, starring Jackie Chan, Yuen Siu-tin and Hwang Jung-lee. After disgracing his father and running amok, a young Wong Fei-hung is sent to train under Beggar Soul, or aka Sam Seed in the English dub, a master who is infamous for crippling his students. When he escapes, Fei-hung offends ruthless assassin Thunderfoot. Fei-hung is then beaten and humiliated, and he returns to Beggar Soul to train and learns the secret art of drunken boxing. Yeah, now this was a part of the 2-picture deal that seasonal films Ng Si-yoon had actually struck with Lo Wei when it comes to making movies with Jackie Chan. And the first one was such a surprise hit, Snake and Eagle Shadow. They thought, why not just capitalize on this and make something different? So they thought, why not take a very famous Kung Fu hero who's been covered by so many people, especially from the 40s or 50s, and even from prior to then, and even up until more or less the 70s when this film was made. They thought, let's just do Wong Fei-hung, but do a more comedic approach to it. So they kind of saw what worked in Snake and Eagle Shadow, like for example having Jackie Chan playing playing a completely different character. Instead of being like the underdog type of character, he was like a bratish, arrogant, really mischievous and very kind of like just a very unfilial son. And have Yuen Siu-tin play the teacher again, so they kind of built more on the teacher and student relationship, but they also just had more of a comedic approach to it. There was a lot more heavy approach on the comedy, which was a really well paid off gamble. Because they knew that it was going to actually work, considering it worked the first time. Let's just try that stuff again, just do up the ante a little. And this time around they had Hwang Jung-lee again displaying some amazing kung fu. In Snake and the Eagle Shadow, he was doing a lot of his the eagle claw that he had actually pretty much just learned for that movie in particular, and I think also Invincible Armor as well. But yeah, but then in Drunken Master, he's actually kind of like using quite a few different styles, but he is pretty much using his taekwondo, which is what he was an actual expert in, and his kicks are just absolutely lethal. They're ferocious. I know in Snake and Eagle Shadow he actually knocked out one of Jackie's teeth by accident, and this one is just like, the kicks he delivers are just absolutely amazing. Now of course the chemistry between Jackie Chan and Yuen Siu-tin is absolutely it's really well done. They're kind of like, almost a steptoe and son kind of like chemistry going on, where he's like this kind of almost like a father figure to him, but the fact is he's always kind of like ragging him, especially with the scene when they first meet and when he finds out who he really is, and he tries to kind of like take on Beggar Soul, but Beggar Soul just absolutely destroys Fei-hung and just beats him, humiliates him in a really kind of comical way. And there's even like little nods there's a nod to Bruce Lee, where Jackie Chan's kind of using like this kind of swinging kind of hammer thing as like a nunchuck and stuff. And that scene was actually quite funny when you're fighting this bald-headed guy. He has a good fight with Shu Jia, who's like the king of sticks. And the training sequences again are some really grueling ones. I mean, it's like, for example, just going from like wrist to hand in like a elevated push-up position, and doing like those crunches with emptying like water, filling up water into the actual like pot, like a little kind of like bucket at the top. Like he was just doing these like kind of like sit-ups. And I'm sure there's something that things that a lot of people, especially those who grew up in doing watching kung fu movies, must have actually imitated as well. I know I did try and imitate some of the stuff in this movie. And when he gets to actually kind of like cracking walnuts and everything, and also the when he gets to use learns the 8 Drunken Immortals style, you see him kind of like you see Jackie Chan is at his physical peak. This was like pretty much a mid 20s Jackie Chan, who was absolutely like he was nimble, he was flexible, agile, and was able to kind of, before he had kind of like gone through so many ridiculous injuries to follow, this was pretty much him doing like an old school kung fu comedy. And the film itself was a resounding success, and even bigger one. I think this probably was the highest grossing film in Asia in 1978. It was just that popular. It was so well kind of like received, particularly in countries as well as Hong Kong and China. I don't think it was released in China, but Hong Kong, in Japan, where there was like Jackie Mania for so many years. South Korea was really big in there, Philippines, Malaysia, everywhere, wherever this film was released, it was just kind of like a big success. And even when it came to the home video market, especially in the UK, when it was released by Rank, which had like the original dub, export dub, which had like pretty much the same voices that we used in the Snake and Eagle Shadow dub, but and that dub, for some reason, nobody's able to kind of source it, because even the Eureka release, that's amazing, because I prefer watching it in the Cantonese language, which is the original language, but that old school dub definitely is very nostalgic. That's the first version that I saw as a child, and this was actually probably one of the first Jackie Chan films I saw, along with Police Story, on VHS, and it's just absolutely incredible. You have there's so many great fights throughout. The humor is funny, and it is like really on point. The comic timing of Jackie Chan, as well as Yun Soo Tin in this film, is just like it's perfect. And again, this is like the hallmark. This is, when it comes to like kung fu comedies, definitely this probably is one of the best ones, without a doubt. I mean, if not the best. Number 9 is Fist of Legend, 1994 movie directed by Gordon Chan, which stars Jet Li, Chin Siu-ho, Billy Chow, and Yasuaki Kurata. After hearing of his master's death, Chen Zhen returns to Shanghai from Japan. He challenges the Japanese fighter, becoming a hero for the Chinese after winning, who are actually being oppressed and suffering under this whole colonial rule, imperial Japanese rule. And once he learns that his master's poisoned, Chen Zhen seeks the truth while struggling with his own personal conflict, which is a relationship with a Japanese woman. Yeah, this was a remake of Fist of Fury that Jet Li had really wanted to do, which he kind of like convinced writer and director Gordon Chan, who was working on Bodyguard from Beijing, or I think that was just, they had worked on Bodyguard from Beijing afterwards, but then he had actually wrote the story of that movie. But then, he was really against the idea. Gordon Chan said, I don't want to remake the Bruce Lee movie, especially a classic like Fist of Fury, but it paid off because it fleshed out the characters more. The fight choreography was done amazing, as well as, Jet Li would never be, or anyone would ever be on that same kind of like level as Bruce Lee was, but in terms of the way that the fights were kind of choreographed, they were a lot more cinematic, and Yuen Woo-ping did an absolutely amazing job. And there are more fights in this movie than there are in Fist of Fury. Just the way that they were filmed and the editing, it was just done so well. It's like, the fact that even the Japanese in this film, they're not all bad. It's like the usual template, like it was with Fist of Fury and many other films that were made, especially during the 70s, around that era, which was like usually the pre or post World War One movies, where the Japanese were absolutely like, every Japanese character in a kung fu movie was really bad. It was like just like they were just despicable bad guys, and often to like very caricaturish kind of like portrayals. But this time round, you had like, you had evil, bad Japanese characters, but then you also had like some good ones. Like, for example, Yasuaki Kurata's leader of the Black Dragon Clan, who kind of like tries to stay away from the politics, but he just kind of also has very kind of like pretty much mixed feelings about the Japanese emperor and the imperial government. And but then at the same time, Billy, he has a great fight with Jet Li as well. Chin Ho gets to display his kung fu, especially in the scene where the Japanese actually turn up at the Jingwumen school, and even his duel with Jet Li was really good. But then, of course, the finale for me, I mean, that fight between Jet Li when he takes on Billy Chow at the end was just like amazing. Billy Chow is just such a beast. I mean, a real life Muay Thai champion who kind of like got to show his ability against Jet Li, and the fact that they're both kind of like almost fighting on a very similar kind of Muay Thai kind of style. I mean, this did capture the essence of Bruce Lee, which was led to adapt and to learn that Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do was to kind of like pick up what works and kind of like utilize that, like mixing your martial arts, like not just relying on one style and developing, like, for example, a new style, a new skill, then to be unpredictable for your opponent. And that fight is just absolutely just iconic. And I mean, especially when it comes to the original language version, which 88 Films had finally released, in like an amazing 4K restoration. I thought the music score by Joseph Koo is just amazing, especially the title theme tune. It just gets really charged up and amped. And definitely, I mean, one of the movies, this is when I was a teenager when I first saw this movie, which was the Made in Hong Kong release of this film. I absolutely I loved it, and I was actually studying martial arts at the time. That just kind of this was one of the movies that kind of got me heavily more into it, and I started kind of at that time just training like mad. I thought, I used to kind of imitate some of Jet Li's movements and stuff, and I thought that this is just for me, this is cinematic kung fu gold. And of course, this was the film that the Wachowskis, or Wachowski sisters as they're called now, who were the Wachowski brothers back then, had actually seen this movie, and that's what made them kind of use Yuen Woo-ping for the fight choreography in the Matrix trilogy. And I could see, I mean, it's a very influential film, very kind of even though it didn't do so well in its native release, but the fact that when you get a global release, it kind of made a really kind of a great impact in terms of its box office and great returns. And definitely, one of Jet Li's, in terms of kung fu, I would probably say Jet Li's best film. In terms of fight choreography and the way that the action design is done, definitely his best movie. Number 8 is Warriors 2, which is starring Lung Ka-yan, Sammo Hung, Casanova Wong, and Fung Hak-on. Now, Chun Wa-shun is working as a bank cashier when he overhears a plot to kill the mayor by his boss, Mr. Mo. He is targeted by his boss's men, and he is left injured. He's taken in by Lung Chan, who's a doctor and also a master of the Wing Chun style. After Chan's mother is killed, Lung Chan reluctantly accepts Chan as his disciple. This also puts the Wing Chun school in danger. Now, this was pretty much the first film made about Wing Chun by Sammo Hung, who had actually worked with Guy Lai briefly on the Lau Kar Wing movie Dirty Tiger and Crazy Frog, which they had also starred in together. And Guy Lai himself was a Wing Chun expert. So he kind of taught Sammo Hung and all the other cast members just the forms of Wing Chun, the styles and everything. And Sammo Hung thought it would be a great idea to actually direct a film, make a movie which is based upon like the people who started Wing Chun, because Wing Chun itself in reality is not seen as a very cinematic form, because it's very close quarter combat, kicks are low, and it's mainly just like moving with your hands really fast and your elbows and stuff. So it wasn't really that cinematic at the time. But then, of course, they did elaborate a bit much, make it more Hong Kong movieized, and it made, for some amazing fight choreography. I mean, we still get to see Casanova Wong, the Korean martial artist, utilizing some amazing kicking skills and leg control, especially like in his first fight sequence with Mr. Mo's men. And the henchman, like Thunder Tai, who was actually played by one of another Korean martial artist who's like using Taekwondo, because this film was also filmed in South Korea. And you got Dean Shek playing like a really slimy kind of like an assistant to the bad guy, and he gets like a funny kind of fight scene in it as well. The train sequences again really cool, especially when you see like Leng Chan teaching Chen Hua-shun how to kind of like use the wooden dummy, and having those kind of like wooden dummies that kind of travel, him having to stop them both in this kind of chamber. And I mean, Leng Kai-yan was great. The fact that he's never trained in martial arts formally, the fact that he actually makes it look really effortless, which is why he's just that great of a performer, and he just pulls it off with natural ease. And definitely, I would say, this was like, when it comes to like Wing Chun movies, one of the best ever made. And Sammo Hung did an amazing job as a director, putting together some really cool fights. You get to see an early Yun Bu as like one of the henchmen. You got people like Meng Hoi and Philip Cole playing like two kind of like the Sword Brothers, who are like two old guys with like pretty much identical beards and like clothes, and they actually got two swords each, and just kind of like at the end you get to see them. And really cool, just the bad guys. And of course Fong Hak An's kind of like mantis style, and it kind of defies gravity, but it just looks so cool and so kind of like deadly at the same time. And overall, I mean, it's an absolute classic. It's one of like the kung fu movies, especially the ones made by Sammo Hung, that I have actually revisited so many times. I mean, I had the Made in Hong Kong VHS of this film. I've had the Hong Kong Legends DVD, and now, of course, the Eureka Blu-ray, which was actually doubled with Prodigal Son, which was the Wing Chun double feature. And great release, by the way. Release, if you haven't got it, trust me, you need to get that release. It's just that good. And again, because it's just a classic film, and filled with really cool choreography. I mean, especially, everyone gets a great fight in this movie. So you get Casanova One gets his fair share of fights, Leng Kai-yan does, and even Sammo Hung, and of course all the bad guys, they all get to have like really great kind of interactions in terms of like the fight scenes. And Sammo Hung playing like this everyman character who kind of like is like the comedic relief, and he does add some like genuinely funny kind of like humorous moments, which Sammo Hung is a natural at doing. And everything about the movie works, and for me it's like one of those I've watched like so many times. I remember getting the Made in Hong Kong VHS, and it said at the I think it was at the front of the movie, it says the greatest kung fu movie ever made. And when I saw, like, for example, it had all these characters. If you look at the reverse of the VHS sleeve, it had all these different characters in there. I thought, you know what, Sammo Hung's in this. And the fact that you got all these different kind of characters and whatnot, and at that time when I did first see it, I wasn't that kind of well versed in who's who in Hong Kong cinema, but then I did start learning a lot more. But then I thought, I need to see this movie. This has got to be good. And boy, you know what? It's one of like the movies that where I trusted my gut, and it turned out to be an absolute classic, and one of my definitely one of my all-time favorite kung fu movies. Number 7 is 5 Deadly Venoms, which is a 1978 film directed by Chang Che, starring Lu Feng, Wei Pai, Sun Qin, Philip Kwok, Lo Meng, and Chang Sheng. Now, a dying old man tells his young disciple about his 5 previous pupils who were trained in different styles of Kung Fu, and they were all part of a notorious gang called the Poison Clan, which pretty much was absolutely bad. They terrorized a lot of people, killed so many, and the name was enough to kind of like strike fear into the hearts of many. and he is actually sent to find them, and if they are good, to work with them, if not, to kill them. And but much more is actually at stake than the clan's gold that everyone wants to claim. This film is like, it's one of those, it has to be seen to be believed. I mean, Chan Chay's direction in this film is absolutely amazing. I mean, there are some really good fight scenes and a few kind of like good demonstrations of training sequences from the start and all the way through to the towards the end and whatnot as well. But you get to see these young actors who are then, after this movie, dubbed as the Venom Mob, even though this movie was not a great resounding success, considering you had a year with films such as like Snake and the Eagle Shadow, Drunken Master, Warriors 2, and so many other great movies. 36 Chamber of Shaolin were all kind of like pretty much released, amongst others, in 1978, which is probably dubbed as one of the greatest years of Kung Fu cinema. I think that was Fanatical Dragon who did that, martial arts theatre. Can't remember one of them. They actually did a video on this. It's really good. I would recommend you check it out. But but this film, it's more than just a martial arts film. I mean, sure enough, you got like all these great styles on board. I mean, Lo Meng, he became one of my favorites. Even though his character is he's not in the movie as much as the rest. He has meets a really kind of like really bad fate, as he did in most of the Venom Mob movies. But his style was really cool. But then you get to see so many different kind of styles of Kung Fu. But at the same time, this movie is it's full of suspense. It's like the plot pacing, it's really kind of it's really dark, and it's very kind of it's like a crime thriller set in what looks like the Ming Dynasty era. And it's just what was the song? I'm not too sure which one, but of course, it's just really kind of it's unique. It's some great fight sequences, again with long takes, and Lu Feng is absolutely amazing with the centipede style, and of course Philip Rock showing the lizard style, and even Wei Pai, who doesn't really get to do much in the Venom Mob movies when he's there, but then even him with his snake style was pretty interesting, and he's playing one of the Venoms who has become a rich and a very influential man. And he's kind of using his kind of power to kind of sway the courts and everything in his own favor. This is just pure class, just great filmmaking, great martial arts, great choreography, really good kind of a good mystery thriller. And definitely, this is, this is the reason why it's in probably nearly everyone either's got this in their top 5 or top 10 whenever I speak to people who on the internet when it comes to Kung Fu movies, definitely. Number 6 is the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, which is a 1978 film directed by Lo Ka-leung. Stars Gordon Liu, Lo Li, Wang Yu, and Li Hoi-sang. Now, a young student joins an anti-Qing movement. When they are discovered, his father is killed and his father's business is absolutely ruined. And injured and a wanted man, he heads to the Shaolin Temple. There, he actually becomes a monk and bit by bit decides to study the martial arts, eventually passing through each of the 35 chambers, perfecting his skill in different disciplines, hand-to-hand combat, weaponry, as well as the basics like arm strength and leg strength, agility, you name it, and coordination. He kind of masters it all. Yeah, now this is, again, of course, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. I mean, if you are a huge fan of the Wu-Tang, of course, they got their title from this movie, and as well as the Enter the Dragon, so it's Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers, for their debut album. And it's just an absolute, when it comes to the embodiment of Chinese martial arts, of Kung Fu, this movie just portrays that perfectly, because as you see how this young boy who then eventually becomes Sante, which is his Shaolin Buddhist monk name, he kind of he starts off like, especially the scene that always gets to me. It's something that I would probably, kind of like always kind of refer to whenever I've started a new job. It's this scene that always sticks in my head. Is when he goes to like the highest chamber of all, and he sees just a bunch of Buddhist monks just chanting, reading the sutras and whatnot. And they ask him, because he wants to learn Kung Fu, and they say, "Oh, how many times have you read the sutras?" And he goes, "No, I came to learn Kung Fu." They go, "Get out!" And he goes, "Oh, but Abbott," he goes, "No, get out," and just kind of chi blasts him, and he goes out. But then afterwards, he kind of says to one of the other more senior monks, he says, "Oh, what was that?" He goes, "That's the highest form of Kung Fu you'll ever learn, but of course that's before you even get there, because why not start somewhere a bit more, try like one of the lower chambers." And then of course he starts learning by like different things, by maybe jumping on top of the logs in water to control his balance, and then you use arm strength and all these different things. But it's just like the big crux of the movie, of course, is majority of it is like almost like a big long training session, because you just get to see him kind of portray, like, for example, how he's kind of not very skilled, but then of course each time he's going on, he's actually perfecting it, because it doesn't just show that he's just turns up and all of a sudden he just becomes he's really good at it. Okay, you passed, go ahead to the next chamber. But you just see him kind of going through like the struggle, the fact that he starts off as this kind of like someone who's not doing so well as the beginner, but it's over, as the montages increase, you see him kind of like improving his skills. He's working hard, he's kind of like finding ways to improve his abilities, just so he can kind of move to the next chamber, and eventually kind of becoming a master of the arts. And the only downside for me, I thought the last fight that he has with the villain played by Lo Li, who's like a government official, corrupt, and he hates he's just killing all the Ming patriots, and it's just that the fight at the end, it just seemed just underwhelming, considering with all the amazing martial art history that we had on display when the film was more or less taking place within the walls of the Shaolin Temple. It's just, I thought that the ending just wasn't really, it was just kind of underwhelming. It was just like, yeah, we know he's going to kick his ass and he's going to go. But then that was the only part of the movie that I kind of thought would have been a lot more better if they just kind of like, just made it a lot more epic, put more into the fight choreography. But without a doubt, this is still probably one of like when it comes to like the embodiment of martial arts, this film is just it's a masterpiece of Kung Fu cinema, without a doubt. One that, if you're into Kung Fu movies, you probably have seen it, and if not, definitely this is one of the must-watch Kung Fu movies of all time. That was my films 10 till 6. Now, of course, the next one's going to be the final one. We're finally here. Wow. Amazing. I never thought I'd actually make it this far, but within time. But definitely I am actually looking forward to this. I'll be chopping this up. This is a reshoot that I've had to do for these videos, because I just wasn't happy with how the initial one was turned out. So I thought I'm going to do this again, and the next one's going to be the final one, and I can't wait. Well, this is Sid. I'm signing out, and keep watching. Thank you.